different regions maybe of Ukraine. We are very happy, and I am very happy to welcome a warm hello to David Marsh, well-known father and guru of CLIL and AI apps. And David, I read your interview, and I will cite the sentence you said once. Is it okay?
I guess, yeah.
I think the main drive is adapting education to suit the demands of the time we are now living in. And this perpetual statement, I think, very important now and very is up to date. And today, your lecture titled New Opportunities and New Solution will enhance our education, enrich our knowledge from methodology to inspire our students, our teachers to share the information we obtain here in future in classroom and at meetings with educational communities of Mykolaiv and other regions. Thank you, David. You are our special guest, and you have a word, please.
Okay. We have some voice interference coming. Is it? Okay, now it's stopped.
I don't know what voice and whose voice it is interfering.
Could you check?
Шепель, будь ласка, can you mute yourself?
Please mute your microphone, guys.
Just a moment.
Perfect. Okay.
And one more, David. I am sorry. We will highly appreciate in case you have questions, please write your questions in a chat. Okay? So, David, I am sorry, I got to you.
No, that's fantastic. Now, hi, everybody. It's good to see you. Actually, I can't see you, but I know you're there. Otherwise, I'd feel very stupid because I could be standing here talking to myself. But at the moment, I can't see you, but I will be able to see you in about 20 minutes when we take a pause and open up an opportunity to talk. Now, in order to prepare for that, it would be great, as Dr. Tetiana just said, use the chat. It doesn't have to be a question. It could be an idea. It could be a comment. It could be anything, yeah? Because my objective, and this is why I think I've been invited today, it's not so much to tell you things as to try to answer questions or show you things that may be of interest to you as professional educators. I do believe this is a time of opportunity. And there is a saying that the night is darkest before dawn. And when things are demanding, sometimes it's a time to look to the future and say, well, you know, what can I get for myself as a teacher, as an educator, as a researcher, which will enrich my life and enrich the lives of those that I work with and that I teach. So something's happening out there. And I'm going to try to summarize this for you in as interesting a way as possible. But please do use that chat if you wish. That's something that is happening out there throughout the world in terms of education and in terms of languages education, relates to what we call Industry 4.0. It relates to the emergence of education needs now to respond to this very, very fast changing situation globally concerning, of course, AI, concerning many, many factors. It's a time of great change. So education is changing very fast. However, education is not always a fast-moving creature. If you like, it's more of a tortoise or a snail compared to being a fast-moving, a jaguar or a tiger. And national systems are sometimes very slow. And sometimes, you know, if we are people who want to make things good and who want to feel good at the end of the day and feel good at the beginning of the morning when we go to the university, when we go to the college, or we go to school. Sometimes we simply have to do things ourselves, or preferably with other people, and not wait for the system to tell us where we're going and what we're doing. So it is a time of change, and it is a time of opportunity. Now, there are some key trends which I can see across Europe, but also across Latin America and across Asia. There are key things moving in terms of schools and colleges needing to adapt. One of those is, of course, AI. Another one is to do with integration. That means putting good things together in a slightly different way in the curriculum, for example. One of those is to do with the well-being of teachers and the well-being of students. Building student agency, their self-confidence, their efficacy, the belief that they can succeed, inclusion, learning spaces, and helping people become future ready. Now, I'm not going to talk about all of these. And as I said, we're going to have time for me to answer your questions, because that's the most important thing I think I can do. But I would like to touch on some of these. But I'd like to start by telling you a story. And this story will take about 5 minutes. And it's a true story. Yeah. So can a story be true? Yes, it's a true story. It's a true story. And I want to take you to Mexico. And the situation in Mexican high schools is such that they spend a lot of time learning English. They live, of course, on the border of a massive primarily English-speaking country. And their ability to use English is very, very low when they leave high school. So teachers in Mexico were saying, surely we can do better in terms of teaching English and in terms of these young people learning English. And when we went into this situation to look at what we could do that's different, because it was clear that learning English was failing. They had some 560 hours of learning English at school, and they would leave school, and their ability to use English was zilch. Their self-confidence to speak English, very low. Their motivation to learn, high. Their satisfaction with their learning history at school, low to very low. But their awareness of the importance of English for them in their lives was high. And we talked to the teachers and we said, look, we know life is demanding and life is difficult. You have classrooms of 50, 60 students. You have poor infrastructure. You often have difficulty with many security issues, et cetera. So we interviewed the teachers, we talked to the teachers. Their belief that the students could succeed was high to very high, which is interesting because that's not always the case. Quite often teachers become cynical or they become tired and they just think, oh, this is hopeless when the results are so poor. Access to the internet poor, need for innovative materials was high, satisfaction with textbooks was low, and their hunger, their desire for something new was high. So then the question arose, should we give the students more English hours? Now, I don't know how many hours of English a student might spend learning, how many hours a student in Ukraine might spend learning English in the public system. Perhaps somebody, if they know, could write that in the chat. But actually, the number of hours does not correlate with the quality of the outcome. Italy, Korea, Japan have some of the highest numbers of hours in the world, but their results are very, very poor. Although Italy is changing, especially in the north, for reasons I can say later. Spain is high. Spain is changing, but still it's a very high figure. Finland, 680, and Mexico, about 565. So is it actually, we don't think the solution to this major problem is more hours, because it's not a matter of quantity, it's a matter of quality. So then we said, well, they said, what about the textbooks? So we set up a 10-country expert group to analyze popular textbooks in Korea, Spain, Japan, Brazil, Italy, Mexico, and another country, or Finland. And the results were very interesting because the green is good, the blue is acceptable, and the red poor. And what we were looking at was, you know, these different things. Is it relevant? Is the perspective positive for young people? Do they learn? Do they actually learn something? Are they motivating, etc.? And the outcome was that these textbooks were not very good. Now, there's a saying in American English called the tyranny of the textbook. And the textbook can be really important in terms of governing the quality of an English language program or a program in geography or history or something else. But no, these textbooks were poor, except one in Italy, which was designed specifically for CLIL. And that was a star, that was the best out of all of them. And I spoke to one of the prestigious British textbook publishers, somebody there, and I said, you know, I can't understand that we've looked at 3 of your textbooks and they're boring. They're boring, man. No self-respecting 15-year-old is really going to want to spend hours plowing through this page by page by page because of lots of reasons. It's not motivational. It's just not good. Why? How come your textbooks are not very good? And he laughed and he said, well, I agree with you. And I'm thinking, oh, great. So he's in charge, but he's agreeing. He said, the reason is they sell. And if something sells, we don't want to change it. If you change textbooks, it upsets the client. And the main client are the bulk of teachers, not the few innovative teachers who say, surely we can do better, but the bulk. So we said, okay, textbooks not good. So then the proposal was that we would develop a CLIL solution for these young Mexicans. And what we did was we created 20-hour modules, 20-hour learning experiences using CLIL. They were spread 2 hours a week over a semester. And we created the resource package for the topics. So there was some training of the teachers. Most of the teachers were language teachers, not all. Most of them were English language teachers. And we created these units. Now, in the units, the scaffolding was so strong for the English and for... At the same time, the tasks were very demanding. And people would say, there is no way these students can manage if they have an A1 level in English. They can't cope with this. It's too difficult. So we said, no. Don't underestimate these young people. Don't underestimate. If you give them something that really excites them, they will find ways to cope and to develop. And one of the key issues, one of the key reasons why we introduced this CLIL learning experience into English language teaching in Mexico was to develop competencies, okay? So every module also developed competencies. And the key here was the students saying, I'm learning about life in cyberspace through English. I'm not learning English about cyberspace. I'm learning about AI through English. I'm not learning English about AI. And other topics, and the topics were generated by the students themselves. Gaming, my life skills, where do I want to go? What do I want in my life? Happiness was a topic that came up from the students because they are living often in very unhappy, with very unhappy stresses and my life journey and so on. So we created these modules. The key of the material was that the students could manage to work alone with very little input from the teacher. the teachers said it was amazing. Once they accepted doing this, which happened very fast, much faster than I thought, actually, because these are students who say, I hate English, you know. Once they accepted it, they were able to cope very well. So we tested in a study 1,600 students, very diverse backgrounds. Some of these students were living far in the country, no internet, often electric breakouts and so on. And the results were amazing. They were so good, they were too good to be true, frankly, because one of the ways of measuring the results was to ask the students to anonymously reply to questionnaire, open-ended and closed and the response rate was very, very high, which was very unusual. But also what was high were the students who wrote how they felt about this opportunity to learn English in this way, because what they were saying was, I wish all of my schooling was like this. I wish all my schooling was different. Me listening to a teacher going taka, 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 and having to go page by page through a textbook. That may not be appropriate. So the results were really good, especially that one on the right. 89%. This is halfway through the experiment. It was a 3-year experiment in the end. 89%. I am proud of what I have achieved. These are students whose self-confidence was very, very low when they started out. And when we spoke to the teachers at the beginning, the teachers
David, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Guys, particularly Alex, I don't know who it is. I would kindly ask you, mute your microphones, please.
Can I mute mine, Tatiana?
No, no. You are the only person who shouldn't unmute, who shouldn't mute your microphone. Okay, I'm sorry, David.
Thank you, Tatiana, because that was it does disturb that
I understand. It disturbs greatly everyone.
At the beginning, these students, 15, 16 years old, would not speak anything in English in class in front of other students. Some, yes, there would always be 5 out of 50 who would talk very happily because they had the confidence. But most of the students were very, very shy indeed. And already after a short period, the 40%, the 30%, they were going up. And the teachers said their motivation to learn English had gone very, very high. Now, how do you, So what's an easy way to understand why 2 hours a week of English using CLIL in this way worked so well? And I think I believe the reason is actually quite simple. The eye of the learner, the eye of the student, the mind of the student is primarily on learning about something that is interesting for them, and not learning something where they know they're going to be tested, learning something where they remember people laughing at them in earlier school because they said something funny, you know, to a teacher in English or something, and probably had a stressful experience of trying to understand English prepositions and grammar. I mean, English prepositions are a nightmare, you know, for anybody. So because their eye was on that topic, they had, in the words of Stephen Krashen and others, their emotional filters opened. If you're worried, if you're stressed because you think, I can't do something, whether it's riding a bicycle, whether it's cooking something, whether it's making small talk with the boy or the girl that you want to talk to, or whether it's learning languages or mathematics, it will block you. It will block you from learning, and it's severe. But it is particularly severe with languages and mathematics. Those are the 2 subjects in the curriculum that are particularly affected by any kind of dark cloud hanging over the person. What we did in Mexico was that after 400 or 450 hours of learning English, we opened that filter. And when we opened it, we realized that actually these children, these young people had a big reservoir of English, you know, like a large passive knowledge of English. Of course they do. They listen to music, they do gaming, you know, and they have cousins who come from the United States and so on. But what that 2 hours a week did was to activate that sleeping knowledge. Okay, now I have a question for you, because I'm the teacher here, so it's my job to ask questions. That was a very bad job. But anyway, I have a question. What key skill does a person need if they are to work nowadays effectively and in the best interest of others as a doctor, a teacher, an engineer, or a detective?
Ти не хочеш подивитися, що я купила?
I'm not going to ask you to answer that question now. We will come back to it. But the question is, now in Industry 4.0, in this incredibly fast changing world, what key skill does a person need to be a good doctor, a good teacher, a good engineer, or a good detective? There may be many, but let's see if we agree on the answer towards the end when I suggest an answer to you. Integration is happening all through the curriculum of leading schools. It is happening in leading educational systems, if they are small. Educational systems, as I said, they're like the tortoise versus the tiger, but they're also like the very big, heavy ship compared to the small ship. The big ship is heavy. It's hard to change. It's hard to navigate. It's hard to turn. But the small ships, they can move quickly and they can move fast. Finland is a small ship. Estonia is a small ship. Korea is a big ship that thinks it's a small ship, which is why it also changes. You're seeing change happening all the time. And integration is one of those. CLIL is one form of integration. It's not something special about languages. It's not something special about English. It is one form of saying, in the old days, we had chemistry, physics, linguistics, all as separate subjects. We need them as separate subjects, but we need to fuse. We need to show the connections between them, because nowadays we need super bright young people leaving college, leaving school, going into the workforce who have something called systems thinking. And systems thinking is something that I think I'm very bad at, but systems thinking is the ability to look at something through different perspectives. And funnily enough, if you have competence in 2 languages or 3 languages, you already have a major advantage for systems thinking, because you can look at this thing through Ukrainian, you can look at this thing through Spanish, through English, and that is already a major advantage. But integration is here. You can see it with many other subjects. STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, that is an example of integration. CLIL is one example of what is happening across good systems. Now, in the last 3 or 4 years, we've had the acceleration of AI. And the relationship between AI, CLIL, language learning, and education is very, very significant. It's very important. When the AI broke, when the news broke about 2 years ago, the first response was, are we going to live with it? Are we going to ban it from our schools, from our colleges? Are we going to ignore it? And some cities, some countries, they tried to ban it, where it's ridiculous to try to ban AI, like ChatGPT or whatever. Some countries are trying to ignore it, and some countries just brought in rules and regulations to stop it. Now, I want to just pause here, and I want to open up the discussion. I'm going to stop the, oh gosh, don't leave meeting. Don't press leave meeting, David. All right, back. I just want to open up before we continue with the AI on if there are any comments about anything related to CLIL or the integration that you would like to ask or have asked in the chat. So over to you. Oh,
We have responses in our chat as to your question, or what should students possess and what should we create. So there are quite a lot of answers, such as adaptability, to be flexible, to have critical thinking, then to have a good command of communication, motivation, to have the ability to learn fast, problem solving.
I can see. Yeah. No, thank you so much for that. I can now see the chat. Okay, wonderful. Anastasia and others, let's come back to your artificial intelligence question in a while. But anybody now, if you wish to ask or make a comment, please put on the microphone and speak. Speak.
Do you mean now we can organize a kind of discussion?
If somebody would like to ask or comment,
yes. Guys, feel free to ask questions, to comment, to express your own thoughts and ideas concerning what was mentioned by Professor Marsh.
If you have anything, just ask.
I think we have. There are many teachers here and university teachers, and our graduate students even take part in our discussion. Taya, I see you. Margarita, you work. If in case you have, please feel free to comment and to ask. Today we had a class and they have prepared beautiful lessons using CLIL approach.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yes,
Okay.
with graduate students. Taya, maybe you would like to say how you were inspired by compiling this micro lesson. It was a micro lesson for 15 minutes.
Hello, I was greatly inspired, and it doesn't only give motivation to students, but also to teachers, I believe, because working with inspiring materials really plays a crucial role. I believe materials are key. And I also have a question. So I had an idea that probably being able to adapt and being able to learn fast is the key ability, but I would like to ask our guest, like Dr. Marsh, what was his opinion about it?
Thank you, Taisia. These are very difficult times, especially in Ukraine for young people, but they are very difficult times globally for young people for many reasons, including something that started happening around 2010. Now, before 2010, people like me, when I went to school, I was bored most of my time at school. I was so bored. I just did not enjoy. There were very few teachers that I loved and that I appreciated, but I was bored out of my mind. The young people now are increasingly bored. And those that are carrying stress, they are bored and frustrated because they're thinking, what am I doing here? What is this going to give me, this course on physics or chemistry or English? So they're very, very frustrated. Now, we have been doing research in 2 countries which had a major problem with being monolingual, Italy and Spain. And both of those countries moved towards using CLIL, and those projects have been researched and the findings are very, very strong. So CLIL accelerating the learning of language, yes, there is a lot of evidence to say that is the case. Sometimes there are people who say, no, 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 CLIL is not good for young people. And one of the reasons that they may say that is that they don't differentiate CLIL from what is called in English EMI. And EMI is where I teach you in English, but I don't adapt my pedagogies because you are Ukrainian thinking through English. I just teach you through English as if you're in Birmingham, Alabama, and you're an English speaker. So where the CLIL is done well, the results are very good. I hope that answers your question, Taisia. Does it? Maybe. Anybody else? You don't have to speak, but I mean, if you wish. If you wish.
We
Actually, I have one more question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, you're welcome.
Nobody's willing. So actually, recently I've read a discussion among different teachers, and some of them are concerned that there is this trend to make our lessons as fun as possible with numerous activities. And there was an opinion that we shouldn't be afraid of boredom in order to enhance our learning abilities, to challenge our students. And so the question arises, where should we draw the line between the boredom and just chaos of different fun activities?
Listen, no student should be bored. You shouldn't be bored, but hard work is needed to learn hard things. And it's like making a cake. If you want to make a chocolate cake and you use 99% Mexican chocolate to make it and you use too much, the cake will be horrible and you won't want to eat it. But if you blend the ingredients in an appropriate way for those students in that school, in that region of that age, then you get good results. So I think it's a question of blending. You know, I've been in education a long time, ever since I was bored at being at school, actually. And there is a problem. I thought it was a northern problem because, I mean, I live in Finland and, you know, this is a Lutheran society and you know, you're supposed to suffer on earth and then when you go to heaven, everybody's happy and so on and so on. And I thought it was a Lutheran thing, but there is a tendency to think in terms of black and white, right and wrong, good and bad. And unfortunately, many things in the world are not that tidy. So sometimes teachers will say, we shouldn't be entertaining our students. No, I agree, you shouldn't be entertaining the students, but you should be using the pedagogical and psychological and social techniques to realize the best potential of the majority of students in your class. So I think there is a line to be taken, Taisia, and it's a question of blending the cake. We used to talk about CLIL like being like chocolate or like perfume, that sometimes a lot of it is not a good thing. But people think if it's good, then we should have a lot of it. Well, no, actually not. What you need to do is to have the right amount to cook the meal or the right amount to bake the cake. And that right amount could be 5–10% easily. That's quite a lot of learning through English in this way. So it is a controversial area, I agree. But for those of you who are starting out in your careers, I would really recommend that you take a look at this, because what has happened in the European Union countries is that when teachers developed themselves as being able to teach through another language, and it's not always English, mostly, but it's not always, they became more desirable in terms of being employed in the jobs that they wanted to be employed in. So it's a positive thing to get involved in if you're interested in language teaching, and if you are interested in class teaching, and if you are interested in teaching other subjects, because it allows you to have mobility, physical or virtual, on a much greater scale. In Finland, So I'm just looking at the snow. In Finland, in snowy Finland, when we developed the competencies for teachers to teach through English, they became instantly more mobile. And what they really appreciated was to have that 1 year, that 3 months, that 6 months working in another country, because they found that more empowering than being on hours and hours of training courses. So there are positives to this, but more is not necessarily better than less.
Thank you, David. You mentioned the word competencies. I would like to ask you, what do you think, what competencies are the most important? A contemporary teacher, we speak about not in general, but a contemporary, and from our point of view of CLIL and AI apps, what qualities a teacher should possess, competencies, sorry.
Competencies for a teacher or the competencies of a student. For the student is critical thinking. I think that's one of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for the teacher, it's to let go. I use a cliche here, forgive me, but it's to be the conductor of the orchestra, not to be the dominant figure who is feeding these children. The students are a problem sometimes, gosh, yes. And the parents are a problem sometimes,
Yes.
gosh. And I know from past discussions that you have in Ukraine a problem, which in Australia, I'm Australian originally, in Australia we call credit hunters, that our students are like credit hunters. They're going through the outback or the forest, and all they're looking for are numbers, credits. And when they get enough credits, they skip because they don't value things that are not given in terms of credits. We created that problem in education. We've created this monster. If we use techniques like CLIL, if we use techniques using AI, we may be at risk of being criticized by parents and students who say, the students say, you're my teacher, teach me what I need for the exam. I don't need anything else. Why should I do group work? Group work is silly. Just tell me what I need for the test. And the parents also saying, you're a teacher, teach my child so they get good grades. So it is not always easy to step outside, but one of the competencies for a teacher is to have the courage to know what is in the best interests of those young people at that time and to be able to manage the curriculum. And also to understand why what they do works and what doesn't work. There is a very big meta study, which is done at the University of Melbourne in Australia, which looks at thousands of educational studies, and it tries to say, what is it that has a really strong impact in terms of education? And if you look at those studies, you'll find that the top of the list is something called teacher efficacy. And that means that the teachers in a group, in a team, in a school, show that they believe the students can succeed. Students are not stupid, they're human. And they perceive, they can read teachers like open books sometimes, which is why they dislike boring teachers. They dislike teachers who are cynical or who are negative, and they need to have a kind of a positivity coming from the teacher as an adult. And I think the CLIL can provide that to some extent. Not easy, but possible.
Thank you.
Let me go back to the sake of my presentation, because I want to ask you now a question about the AI. Before I do that, I have a question for you, and I think it would be great if you could use the chat for this. And the question is, what do we know now about our Ukrainian students, about their attitudes towards learning languages? Learning languages. What is important? What's interesting about Ukrainian young people, could be primary level, secondary level, university, about their attitudes towards learning languages? Can you write something in the chat? What do we know about them? And I can now read the chat.
Please write down if you work at primary school, secondary school, and if you are a university teacher, or maybe you are a student still, please write your comments, please.
Do they want to learn English?
Some of them.
Do they? I'm asking. Do they need to learn Ukrainian? I mean, do they need to improve their Ukrainian from simple speech to being able to write, to being able to think in Ukrainian? Do they want to learn English? Do they have a hunger for English? Do they have the confidence to use English in school? Any comments you could write here in the chat would be really great. First person who answers this gets a prize. I don't know what the prize is, but we'll find one, he says, and it won't be chocolate. Vital to learn English, positive, open-minded. Yeah. Yeah. They enjoy learning English. They're positive towards the language. Yeah. They've become more motivated towards learning English. Yeah. For their future working lives. They understand the importance. Yeah, score hunting is the main goal. Yeah. The easy way out. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Irina. Kate. Thanks, Olena. Yeah. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for those comments. I'm going to go out of the chat. I'm terrified of pressing leave meeting. I did it once. It was really embarrassing, but anyway. If you are interested in teaching languages like English, English is actually so easy compared to teaching German or French. German used to be much easier in certain parts of Europe, but now English is the world language, it's the language of youth. I no longer talk about it as a foreign language, and I know that you do widely use that term in Ukraine, and that might be related to Ukrainian or Russian language, but it's not really a foreign language anymore, you know? That's why I use the term additional language. These young people in Germany, in France, in Finland, they are spending many, many hours a week using digital devices, using apps for pleasure often, and for communication. I just open up the chat here one time and I ask you, please, a question. How many hours a week, if you have some money to own a telephone or a tablet and you have the internet and you have electricity, right? How many hours a week might a 15, 16, 17-year-old Ukrainian be using digital devices of some sort? That could include watching YouTube videos. How many hours a week? There are 7 days in a week. How many hours a week is it? Would somebody like to write a number there in the chat? That's like 7 a day or a week, all free time and another hour. 80, whoa, Aleph Dida, gosh. $14, $30. 24/7, yeah. 24/7. Thanks. Okay, thanks everybody. Look, it's really hard to get accurate studies on this because they'll never tell you the truth. And the parents have no idea of their own children's use of these devices. But there are ways of doing it. And the figures range between 40, 80, 40, 70. It's in the metropolis cities in the European Union. It's astonishing. It's absolutely astonishing. And this is starting from the age of around 5 years old. British study just recently showed, can't remember exactly, I think it's 30% of 7-year-olds have their own mobile phone, you know? So this world is changing, and this is affecting these young people very, very strongly. And unfortunately, there is a negative effect. And the negative effect is being seen in the English-speaking world, but also in the Spanish-speaking world, and some of the other worlds, there isn't any research that we know of to show it. But the evidence shows a dramatic problem with mental well-being starting around 2010 and has become very, very bad now in 2024, particularly for young women, girls and young women. And depression, anxiety, stress. And when you look at the use of the digital world, the cyber world, you say to yourself, well, it's not surprising because there are so many wonderful things to do, but there are so many things that can hurt and that can affect and that can interfere with the psyche of these young people. We have a challenge, and you'll have it in Ukraine as well as they have it in Paris, and that is these young people are actually thinking in different ways. It's not just that they're getting depressed because nobody gave them any likes about their new hairstyle when they put it on Instagram. And by the way, TikTok and Instagram are the two platforms that are being identified as creating the most stress for young people. But they're also changing in how they learn, and they're changing in the skills they have. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing, you know, but it is a thing. CLIL fits this thing very well. CLIL actually slips beautifully like Cinderella's foot into a shoe in supporting these young people in becoming learners. And the AI also has this ability to do it. Now, one of you, I think it was, I'm sorry, I don't remember now. One of you asked about using apps and things for, I think Anastasia, I'm not sure, for learning languages. Quite frankly, the use of AI for learning languages is profound. It's amazing. If I had a child aged 5 now, which I don't, I would want that child to learn Spanish because I think Spanish is a really exciting language if they are an English speaker, a major global language. And I would be looking at the apps that are suitable for teaching the grammar and the pronunciation and the structures of Spanish in a gamified way. You can have your own tutor 24/7, own tutor. You can pick the kind of person, you can pick how they speak to you. You can pick so many things about them. It's private, it's safe. Nobody's laughing at you. And if you want to turn that up on and play that game with pronunciation, phonetics, or whatever, I'm convinced it will be faster, much more effective than having all those children sitting in classes learning these things, which are difficult to teach, you know, in a fun way. You can teach grammar in a fun way, of course you can, but it's actually difficult to reach out and be successful with the majority of children. So the AI is very, very exciting in terms of learning language, and it is very threatening in terms of language teaching. I'll come back to that in a minute. I want to ask you a question, okay? So let's go into that. Let's open up the chat once again. The big issue with AI is it will make it easy for children to teach. Sorry, no, it doesn't. Nothing's easier about learning to teach. It will make it easy for the students to cheat. Okay, and if you look at university policy, if you look at school policy, the first reaction 2 years ago was we have to stop it because everybody's going to cheat. But I want to ask you this question. If a student writes a text and it gives it to AI, doesn't matter which one, for editing, AI edits the text and then the student gives it to the teacher as their own text. Is this cheating? Yes is number 1, 2 is no, and 3 maybe. Can you just answer in the chat? Is it cheating? If I write a text, ChatGPT edits it, is it cheating? 1, 3, 1, yeah, 3, 3, 3. Fabulous. Okay, hold. Gotta ask you another question, okay? Gotta ask another question now. What we have here is a wide variety. We've got 1s and 3s, and I expected that because there is a maybe, but there's also a reason for saying yes. How about this one? I take the text, so I have to write an essay about the history of Napoleon. I give it to AI, AI edits it, and it adds references. I get it back and I give it to the teacher. Is that cheating? Yes, no, 1, 2, or 3. Is it cheating? Yeah, we have quite a few here of responses saying yes, but again, we have those people who are maybe, or as they say in Australia, maybe baby. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Now, to the next slide. I give a long text. I write 3,000 words. I'm supposed to write 1,000. And I give it to AI to reduce the length to suit the word limits. Is it cheating? I don't know. Next, I write ideas for my essay as bullet points. I give them to AI to write them as full text. Is it cheating? I don't know. I take multiple texts from AI. I ask it the same question many times, and then I take those texts and then I write my essay based on all of those texts, those 5 texts I get from AI. Is that cheating? I don't know. I take multiple texts from AI, I edit them into my own text, and I say to my teacher, this has been written by me and ChatGPT. Is that cheating? No, probably not. But there have been opportunities to cheat for many, many years, and they have been getting more and more demanding. Just a minute. For example, I write an essay and I ask my mother to check it for me before I give it to the teacher. Is that cheating? For example, I write something in English as an additional language, and I use Grammarly to check the grammar. Is that cheating? For example, I pay somebody in New Zealand to write my essay overnight, so it comes back to Kiev early morning, ready to go to my teacher. Is that cheating? Yeah, that's cheating. What I'm saying is that the whole issue of cheating has changed. The whole issue of plagiarism is changing. And the whole issue of how do we assess students is changing. Now, in language teaching, in English language teaching, there is a huge industry which concerns publishing. They don't want to change the textbooks because they sell, okay? But the biggest industry in English language teaching is in testing. IELTS, TOEFL, they make huge amounts of money. It's a huge industry. If you make all this money, why would you want anarchists or radical people to say, hey, actually, I don't think IELTS is a very good language test anymore. I think we should find another way of showing evidence of a person's fluency in English. Or at university, we need now to find alternative ways of testing so that we can separate the students who really have learned something and know something, are skilled at something, and those who have just got a wealthy father, wealthy mother, or a friend in New Zealand who likes writing essays. So we're having to assess the whole, we're having to look at the whole way that we're doing assessment. And I would say that is so good. That is so good. I work in Finland, as I mentioned to you earlier, and there are many myths about Finnish education, many, which are quite fun. But anyway, one of the myths is that we don't test in Finland. We don't have any testing in Finland until the student, if they go to academic high school, they graduate at the age of 19, 18. Actually, we don't have standardized tests, but we do have tests. The only standardized test that I know of is actually probably PISA, when we do the PISA studies, which the students, I think, get bored with very quickly. What we have is we have powerful formative assessment, creative formative assessment, where the student assesses themselves. They predict, how am I going to perform in learning this course in English or this course in something. They have peer assessment, where 2 or 3 students together, they monitor, just like in a game. It's very close to gaming. You monitor your performance, and you're not just getting feedback. Feedback is often that number. It's the 5, the 7, the 9, which which feeds the sharks that we call the credit hunters. But what you're getting here in Finland is feed forward. And that is, okay, you've got to this point, and this is where you could move forwards. I never had that when I was at school. I never had the feedback which was focused on moving forward. It was always on what has already happened and what is going to happen in the future. So to answer the questions which were in the chat, and also to make this comment about AI can affect the language teaching world in many ways, which are radical. One of them is already happening, and that is where an educational administration, a government, a ministry, whatever, they say, actually, we don't need to spend all this time learning languages anymore, because why should people learn languages when they can just have a device for instantaneous interpretation, translation, etc., etc. So we have people, often monolinguals, I may say, and unfortunately often male, who are saying, actually, why don't we stop teaching Spanish, French, German, English, and put that time into learning maths and science, because that's more important for the economy. So we have that side of it, which could happen in some ways. But then we have these fantastic opportunities to use apps where we as teachers don't need to control. We guide, we make sure the students are safe, but we don't control. It is their world, it is their agency, it is their empowerment. And you know, what you said about Ukrainian young people, there were a lot of comments there about them being positive, about them being forward-looking, about them wanting to break out of difficult times. Yes, absolutely yes. And including that many of them will be traumatized for a very, very long time because of this situation, because of the war. So in a way, the AI can be a fabulous tool. And there are so many variants. I can't now give you a lecture on, I would recommend this, I would recommend that. But I have seen and I have used some of these apps, and they can be absolutely stunning, because at the end of the day, we need to focus on global competencies, which is this combination of knowledge, skills, and attitudes. And those global competencies are something that we can develop in English And it's something that we can develop through AI. I can give you, I'll ask Professor Tetiana to circulate this presentation in case you want to see it later. But there are so many competencies that can be developed using simple AI, free like OpenAI, ChatGPT, or whatever. There are so many ways now that it can be used in student homework. It can be used for learning languages. Personally, and I've believed this for many years, I don't think we should have tablets in class. I don't think we should have mobile devices in class. And I've thought that for years and years. And now I'm absolutely convinced. And I'll tell you why. Young people, very young people, teenagers, they are suffering. They're suffering on a scale which is ridiculous. It's just so high. They need adults that they can trust, that they can love, that they can respect, and that they know who respect, maybe love, maybe whatever, look after them, that they know these adults care about them and have their best interests at heart. And these adults are the human teachers. So in class, the human teacher, that relationship is ever more important. It's always been important, but now it's ever more important. And when you see systems, and Finland is guilty of this, of just having more and more use of computers in class, where the person is slumped, you know, over a machine and staring at a screen, you think, well, what a shame, what a waste of time. CLIL, good CLIL, can actually give that opportunity for that human interface. But the AI can do many, many things, and it can be a powerful, powerful stimulus. So I think any teacher graduating now has got to be on top of the AI. In language teaching, we have a choice. Are you going to learn about the language, or are you going to learn through the language? If you learn about the language, it's like separated in the mind. If your language 1 is Ukrainian and your language 2 is English, you kind of move from one to the other, you know, and you think, well, I dreamt in English last night, or, you know, I have to think now in Ukrainian because I have to do this in the shop. But if you learn through a language, like through CLIL, those two languages overlap. And that gives a powerful cognitive advantage. That's where the systems thinking is being nurtured. And the AI, just gaming. Gaming doesn't have to be violent, doesn't have to be awful anymore. And we can see now that actually the ratio of boys and girls doing gaming is almost equal in some countries. But the gaming can also provide the ability to think in another language. And I think that's one reason why it is so important for us to take it on board. Learning about the language is not natural. It's not natural. Learning through the language, learning about the cyberspace, the happiness, the mountains, or learning to play a game through the language is natural because it replicates the way that we learned in our first language. So to try to sum this up, there are big changes happening out there, and the trends, and I have to look back at this, the trends relate to the well-being of students. The trends relate to the changing nature of the importance of the teacher in the eyes of the students. Because remember what I said about teacher efficacy? If I, as a young person, believe that you care that I succeed, it is a major positive impact on my ability to succeed. Yeah, you don't need to write a book, you don't need to have a contract, but the student needs to see that desire from the adult teachers to make them succeed. Things are changing in terms of teacher well-being. Teachers have been badly paid and badly treated in many countries for a very long time. Not all by any means, but the nature of teaching is becoming more respected, in my view, as a profession, as it should be. And the most important thing really is that the teacher can explain themselves, that they can take a stand. And the way to do that is not actually to be a lonely rider. It's to join teams who are interested in co-developing things with you. The AI is a must. We're not going to have it necessarily in the classroom for the students, but for the teacher. If the teacher has a classroom with a whiteboard, a projector, a computer, internet, it is fabulous because they can instantly create scaffolded exercises. They can instantly create games. They can watch those students. They can look at the atmosphere. They can look, oh, these students are having this real problem learning this thing. Give it to me in this level of English or in Ukrainian, and it's there. So as a teacher's tool, it's absolutely fabulous, which is why in some parts of the world, teachers are being given the licenses to have these things fully. Inclusion, absolutely essential in terms of respecting diversity and also understanding, finally, that people are different, yeah? And that those differences are often, usually, nearly always, causes of great success. The CLIL is one thing. The EMI, for those of you working in English, is not CLIL, and it is successful for a minority, but it is not successful for the majority. EMI, where you teach through a monolingual approach, is not successful. And the CLIL itself is now embedded kindergarten, primary, secondary, and universities. Universities were slow to adopt CLIL because often university professors are not trained in pedagogies to teach in the first language. They may be fantastically bright people, but they're not necessarily trained as teachers. That has now changed in some countries, the United Kingdom, Scandinavia. All professors are trained to work with pedagogy. So I asked you a question, and the question was, what skill does a person need if they're to be a good doctor, teacher, engineer, or detective? And my answer to that question, which I shouldn't have shown you so quickly, because I should have asked you, is one of those abilities is the ability to know when and how to ask the right questions. It's no longer the ability to memorize knowledge. It's the ability to learn, to have knowledge, but also to have the skills. And that is the biggest change that we have at the moment. And that is one reason why the CLIL and the AI are part of one of those trends which are moving at the moment. If you look at the research on innovative methodologies, you'll see that it's looking good for competencies. It's looking good for helping students be future ready. It's very good on developing agency, which the students love, engaging them in the learning process, helping them build their self-confidence that they can do. Yeah, they can succeed in education, and they can perhaps do things that no other members of their family can do. It can produce better and deeper cognition, and it can also empower them to be motivated. At the end now, because it's now, I'm looking at the clock. I'm going to open this up if anybody wants to ask. You don't need to. And I know it's embarrassing sometimes when they, you know, do you have any questions now? But it's not even difficult to get involved with exciting, dynamic, innovative people. You know, I have the privilege of going around to different places and visiting schools and visiting teachers. And I meet these people and they're fabulous. And these are people who may be sitting in one country, but they have those international projects. They have the sharing, they have all sorts of engagement with the world, because that brings the language, the English, into their classroom. And that shows every student the advantages and so on for learning it. And if you are interested in any of these issues that we've talked about or looked at today, I do sometimes put on this website, it's called David Marsh at Education, some materials, well, not teaching materials, but some comments and materials about the AI, about the well-being, and about other things which are trending at the moment. And one of my favorite words in Finnish is näkemiin, and that means see you later. And I've forgotten how to say the Ukrainian, but I will learn very, very soon, and I'll be able to say it. But now I'm not going to stop the presentation entirely. I'm going to come back to you. Ah, they're still here. You know, I wondered if you'd all just switched off and gone home or whatever. Right.
There are many of us, David.
Yeah,
Yes, how many of us here are here?
Now we have 75 participants, but yes, and I think maybe because of some problems with connections, at the beginning there were 88 of us, but sometimes the connection is not very good, and people can disconnect. So we still have questions in our chat.
Any questions, any comments? Now is the time.
Okay, thank you, Andrea.
I may not be able to answer them, but let's try. And if you ask a question, somebody else might be able to answer it. So let's now move to the best part of the presentation, which is
David, David, maybe you will look through the questions and you will choose some of them.
Oh, that sounds good. That gives me agency. I like that. I can't really see questions. I can see comments, yeah, answers. But let me ask you a question. Are you actually interested in the CLIL? Can I just show a hand? You sort of no, maybe, yes. Can I see a finger, a thumb? Are you interested in CLIL? You don't need to be. I mean, I don't know if I am really, but okay, okay. If you're interested in CLIL, the best way to move forwards, if you are teaching in a school, especially, is to find another school where they are teaching through, for example, English, and start a relationship with other teachers, other people. When we have school and school relationships, is very formal, but the best of the most powerful way to do it is to be able to see and talk with other people who have a similar thing to you. And the beauty of Zoom or Zoom, for example, is that it's so easy now for you to enter into a CLIL classroom in Spain, and for the Spanish to enter into your classroom in Ukraine, and just do something different and something interesting, you know, or then move into project-based learning. But it does work, and it's not difficult. Tetiana, I'm going back to the chat. So my recommendation to those of you who are interested in CLIL is find the people who are doing it and to find the networks where there are resources that can be done. And again, the beauty of English is that the internet is full of some fabulous videos, resources, cartoons, games, which are heavily scaffolded. And this word scaffolding is crucial to CLIL, and it's crucial to AI, and it's crucial to gaming. So it all kind of, you know, fits together.
I see a question, David, by Irina Ryzhkova, a school teacher, our graduate, and she asked, is it possible to successfully implement CLIL without changing the curriculum in high school?
The Finnish curriculum is one of the shortest books in the world. But if I go to a country like Vietnam, the curriculum is so huge, it's like it has to go in a truck, you know? There is a saying in Finland, which is very popular, which is the curriculum should be a tool, not a rule. To answer that question, at the end of high school, students often have high stakes examinations, right? That is not the right time to introduce something like CLIL because it's too stressful. The right time to do it would be when the students are younger, and that time, at that time, it can be added into the curriculum. Very often, it depends on the curriculum to answer the question, because, for example, Spain has now pushed forward a radical change in the curriculum, which is to introduce competence-based learning outcomes. CLIL can be used for that part of the curriculum. So the answer is, if the curriculum is a prison or a rule, no, it is very hard to do it. Yeah.
Thank you. And David, this is not the first time we meet. And mostly every time when we meet without you, with our teachers or graduate students, you know, they often ask a question: how should they introduce CLIL if they do not have manuals, they do not have textbooks? Of course, we mentioned modules for CLIL. It would be great, but it is future, maybe nearest, who knows? But teachers often ask how to introduce CLIL without manuals or textbooks. Thank you.
Find something. So to start with the CLIL, it should be very, very small scale. Find something that really interests those students at that age, at that time. Ask them what it is. See how it has an international angle. It needs to be, when you start this, it needs to make sense why we're doing it in English or why we're doing it in French. Now that international angle could be something that it could be as simple as, we're going to do a project about water, okay? Our use of water in how much we use, how clean it is, whatever. We do a little project on water, which is in the curriculum, and then we're going to share our results with the students in a school in Tanzania or a school in Chile. So the Chileans and the Tanzanians don't speak Ukrainian. So it makes sense that we do the project in English to get ready for this communication. So it needs to be a topic that fits in the curriculum, that is a kind of put into the teaching of the water, if it's being done in Ukrainian, and which uses internet-based materials, which are absolutely fabulous. The animations, for example, animated 2-minute cartoons explaining water, etc., etc., etc. So it's not so much the materials that matter, it's more provoking the interest in learning about the topic and then finding materials that are well scaffolded. I think that kind of tries to answer that question.
Mm-hmm. Particularly when we have lots of AI apps, like, for example, Canva, and our students and teachers use it in order to make their lessons interesting and to organize it in the way of CLIL approach. Do you agree with me?
I do, absolutely. Yeah, I've been using it. I've been testing GPT-4 for CLIL materials to create CLIL materials. And it works very nice in terms of text. The images are not that good, but in terms of text is good. But all those related apps that are linked, they can be absolutely fabulous for this purpose. Go back to that issue of the effective filter. You know, sometimes the CLIL, it's to bring oxygen into the routines. It's to generate something different. It's to, like, in a way, light a fire. And that can be the function, not so much to teach the language as to open the doors for learning of the language. That's where I think it works. And that Mexican example, you know, I'm really proud of that work because the results were so good and they were so fast. They were just so fast. Was it a honeymoon? Yes, in a way, I think it was, but it was a honeymoon that those students needed. And when you look at now the students that you have, if they are credit hunters who are under a lot of pressure just to get very best grades because they just want to go somewhere and do something, then the CLIL has to be dressed as competencies, as vital competencies for doing those things. There has to be a value to the CLIL. Otherwise, it's very hard to introduce.
Thank you. Colleagues, maybe someone else wants to ask a question.
Yes, I want to ask a question, David. So, returning to the exam, to your question with the usage of GPT or maybe AI tools in student works, will you tell us what is the measure for students' work when we understand that this appropriate student, he violates the rules of academic integrity?
In the universities, in some universities, some leading universities, the faculty has said every course that you teach, all you professors, you need to make the rules about how AI is to be used. And frankly, not everybody has the privilege of having internet at home. So there's an access problem still. And some people can buy powerful AI, and some people have to use the cheaper or free AI. So there's a difficulty with making tasks which require using AI. However, it means making protocols for each course. How are we going to use it? It has to be done that way. There are so many ways to cheat that we can't control it. Yeah. But again, I go back to, we've been cheating for years. People have been cheating for years. So actually, maybe it's time to wake up and say, let's change the cheating. So I think, Alicia, that's the best I can say, is that each course opens with a contract on how, if and how the AI is to be used. I was in a classroom the other day in Italy. And the students, they had to park their telephones it was like made of fabric with lots of little pockets, you know, and it was right by the front door next to the teacher's smartboard, so every student could see their phone, just in case they got, you know, anxiety problems. But they had to park those phones, but they were encouraged to use the phones to do homework or to use their phones. And if they didn't have a phone, their school would provide them with a thing, so everybody was equal. But I went to a class in Finland recently, and I was horrified because all of the students were using computers in the class. The teacher was teaching through a computer. They were physically in the same place, and to me, that's a shocking waste of opportunities and energy. But it has to be case by case.
Thank you.
I think, Lecia, yeah, it has to be case by case. And there are examples of how these rules are made. For example, there's a fantastic organization in Canada which freely shares all the university protocols and the high school protocols that they keep developing and negotiating with the students, you know. So yeah, case by case. Well, I think, thank you.
Yes, David, yes.
I think it's time to stop.
Okay.
Sadly.
If there are no any other questions, I would like to address to my colleagues who are not from Mykolaiv or Mykolaiv region. In chat, please write down where are you from, the city or the region simply, in order to know how many teachers from other regions participated in this beautiful lecture. Please do it. And David,
yeah.
Shall we wait or just finish? Maybe no.
No. We can wait. I just wanted to ask, what do we know about Canadian geese?
No, I do not know.
Does anybody know anything about Canadian geese? How they fly? Okay. In Finland, we have swans. What is a swan in Ukrainian?
Лебедь.
Oh, yeah, beautiful. Then we have swans, and they always they go together, male, female, they stay together. They're very interesting,
Yes.
and they're heavy and they're beautiful, but they fly almost like they can't fly. They're just amazing creatures. But Canadian geese, they need to fly very long distances, so they fly in a V shape. Now you know what I'm talking about, yeah? So the one at the front leads the whole pack, and they're flying in a V shape. Why a V shape? Because it's aerodynamic. They can go further using less energy. Well, when the leader, who's facing the wind, when it gets tired, it slips back to the back of the pack, and the next goose takes over. It's an incredible example of collaboration and intelligence. Birds are amazing. I mean, I cannot believe their navigation skills. It's just stunning to see how far they go and how effective they are. But I think the future of being innovative as an educator, it reminds me of the Canadian geese, because it was like 30 years ago when I started working with European Commission support on developing CLIL. Which, by the way, we started by calling it mainstream bilingual education. But I never liked the term bilingual education for many, many reasons, which perhaps is not the right time to explain this. People think of bilingual in different ways, right? Very different ways. And in the United States in particular, it's associated with marginalized people. But anyway, when we started working on CLIL, the power, it didn't come from top-down authorities. It came from the collaboration, the flying together of researchers, of teacher trainers, and of teachers experienced and young. And that fusion of saying, surely we can do better, has been the power, and you can see it right across the world. You can see it in Japan, Korea, all across the European Union. So actually, outside of Ukraine, there are a lot of people, and quite a lot of money has been invested in creating free downloadable CLIL materials. And there are projects which provide these materials. One of them is called CLIL for You. That's CLIL for You. I'm not saying that everything there is good, but it's one of
We
many.
live in postmodern society.
Sorry, Tatiana, sorry?
We live in postmodern society. That's why instead of letters, we use fingers and so on.
That's absolutely right. Okay, look, everybody, I'm humbled that there's so many of you have given up so much time to be here today. I really hope something has been advantageous for this. And also, I think it's fair to say that this looks like the beginning of a movement towards innovation, which could include CLIL in Ukraine, because, as I said at the very beginning, it seems to be a time of opportunity for many of us teachers across the world to change the status quo and the way things are for the better. And I wish you all a lovely evening wherever you are in Ukraine. Thank you so much. And I'm going to say,
just a moment, David, not bye. You have lots of words of appreciation. We really highly appreciate your support of Ukraine, and the issues you highlighted today are of great importance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Thank you.
Thank
Ciao.
you.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Goodbye.